It's time for the Charlotte FC podcast. Well, welcome to the Charlotte FC podcast. Today on the show, we're joined by one of the sharpest voices in American soccer broadcasting, Kyndra de St. Aubin. Did I pronounce that right?
Nailed it.
Nailed it. She's known for her deep tactical reads, field-level insights, and as a former midfielder and center back's understanding of the game. We're previewing a big one, Charlotte FC visiting Chicago Fire at Soldier Field. So let's get into it. And Kendra's fans have loved the dynamics of you and Callum Williams brought at Minnesota United. You two had this really great balance of like the sharp analysis and the storytelling. How did working with a partner like Callum shape the way you approach match commentary today?
Well, he gave me a deep appreciation for just the passion and love for the game. I mean, I always loved soccer, but anytime you're dealing with someone from Europe, it feels like it kind of goes next level in what they've kind of been born into and ingrained and sort of their passion. He was an Aston Villa fan. So I feel like working with Cal just made me appreciate it even more. And I also had a deep appreciation for his preparation because there was never a hesitation or a question of whether or not Cal was going to show up prepared for the game. Having done his research, having done his due diligence, ready for any interview, ready for any podcast we did. It didn't matter, kind of what was going on in life or how busy the schedule was. And I think we balanced each other out. He says oftentimes, I loosened him up. I mean, there was a picture from our last home regular season game with Minnesota United before, we all switched to Apple TV with MLS. And he's wearing this giant loon hat on his head from one of the supporters. And I had reached out to the supporters beforehand, like, we've got to get one of these made for Cal because I don't think he normally would put it on his head and mess up his hair and all that. So I think I loosened him up a little bit and we had a good chemistry. We had a good bond. And now we get to share pictures of kids and, our travels and our life now that we're kind of doing the same thing, but going in different directions at the same time.
Right. Awesome. Well, let's go into this match coming up Saturday. We already had the midweek matches, so this is a short week for everybody, announcers included. So based on like your background, just as I said earlier, your midfielder mindset, your kind of center back kind of thing, I feel like you understand tempo and spatial control pretty well. And what are you expecting from the midfield battle in this matchup? And which side needs to win the space to dictate the game?
Well, first of all, for me, you're coming off of a game for each of these teams where neither coach and neither team is happy. Chicago Fire losing at home in a game which they felt like Greg Berhalter said post-game, we didn't come to play today. We knew what Philadelphia Union was going to do. We gave up a penalty in the first 5-10 minutes of the match, and we didn't match their physicality. We didn't match their energy. We didn't match their tempo. And then on the other side, you have a Charlotte team who has struggled. I believe it's 2 wins in their last 10 games. They've had a ton of road games this year, so they've needed to find a way to get points in which they haven't. They go on the road to a Sporting Kansas City team where they could have been up 3-4 goals and didn't put their chances away. And then instead you do the reverse and you lose the 3 points on the road by giving up late goals in stoppage time, and you come away with nothing except for frustration. So what I can appreciate about having been a former center midfielder and center back is listening to a player in particular like Ashley Westwood, who has been there, done that every level. I mean, he couldn't even sit still in his chair in the post-game interview because he is so fired up and annoyed with how they gave up these goals, not finishing their chances. He wasn't even mad at the defense. He is just like, we need to get back to basics. We need to do the little things right. And that's how I was as a player, very simple. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't fast, but just give me the ball and let me dictate play and just, you said it, the tempo, the pace of the game, understanding when to go quick, understanding when to put your foot on the ball, doing the simple things right. And especially when you're struggling, that's what you need to go back to. And I think that's what Ashley Westwood said. So for me, I think this Charlotte side has a stronger midfield in the current scenario, especially in the formation that they play, a little bit more solidified in the way they play. Mm-hmm. But both these teams also missing players due to international duty with the Gold Cup and such going on. So I think that Charlotte's got a leg up, but neither team is happy. So this could be a real feisty one. I'm excited.
Well, what do you think will happen if it's kind of a close game late? What kind of tweaks might we expect from either coach that fans maybe should be watching for?
Well, I think Chicago has got to be the team that goes for it. I mean, they're the ones who have had, if you go back to that DC United game, I think they put 7 goals on DC, and they have players like a Barlow who can come off the bench and contribute. Kuipers, who everybody is aware of this year. You've got Zinkernagel on the wing, who just is like an engine and just goes, goes, goes. So I think there's a lot of these pieces for the Chicago Fire that at home, they have really struggled. They have not been good. And they need to find a way to continue to impress their home fans. So for me, I think Chicago is going to throw everything at it. Charlotte's going to maybe be a little bit more conservative, especially if it's a tight game and you're on the road and you're just trying to get a point to kind of level yourself off, regain some of the confidence, get this group on the same page. A lot of conversations about post-game conversations in the locker room, having better training sessions, all the things that seem to be frustrating the Charlotte players right now. So I think they're going to be a little more conservative, not like sitting back in a low block or anything like that, but just more conservative if the game is tight, because they don't want to give anything away late. They've been there, done that, and they're just trying to find something little and small to build on moving forward, especially with more home games in the second half of the season than road games.
Right. It's almost like they might have to overemphasize, like you said, not going to a low block, but overemphasize maybe a different style at the end just to make sure you pull out that point if it's close or something.
Yeah, and just capitalize on your chances. I mean, there were no shortage of opportunities to score in that Kansas City game, and especially early on. I mean, there were moments, and some of it's just accuracy. And I know there was chatter, and Westwood talked about making the extra pass. Instead of trying to be the hero and do it yourself. When you're trying to finish something maybe from a tight angle. But at the same time, there were point blank opportunities that weren't even put on frame, or not, the goalkeeper not even having to be forced into a save. And if he was forced into a save, was there somebody there to tap in the rebound? So just going back to basic things and fighting for each other, battling for each other, and sometimes making that extra pass. It doesn't all have to be defensively battling for each other. It can be attacking, making the extra run, making the overlapping run where you're not going to get the ball, but you're going to drag a defender with you and open up space for your teammate. All these little things that can start to really fuel the energy and the confidence of your group. So I think if Charlotte can take advantage of their moments, consider, being a team and not individuals in those scenarios, it can go a long way. Even if you come away with a draw, it may very well feel like a win for this group right now.
Right. I mean, that's like what you said about just the play of them just being not as let me say, more of just being unselfish. And you could tell that in the goal is that Zaha is almost like he drew 4 people. Dumba just went on the side. That's an easy pass. And then he made the cross in the right area and timed the run by Toklamati. I mean, that's how you score goals, but you have to be aware and watch out. And just everybody had to do their thing.
Yes, exactly. It's like everybody doing their part for the team, not doing it for your individual aspect, but you're doing it understanding that you may not be the one that gets the glory in the end, or like you said, or you're drawing the defenders out. That's why when you have a player like Zaha that is so dangerous and so electric, even if he's not touching the ball, he's going to affect the game in so many ways, because he is going to draw the attention. But then your other players, Leo Labata, Pep Biel, other players need to finish their moments, finish their chances, whether they're striking from distance or whether they're, tap-ins or finishes inside the box. Like, that's where you have to start picking up some of the slack if the other guys are drawing and attracting some of that attention. So Charlotte's got the pieces. I mean, I did their game earlier this year. I've done a couple of them. And, I've watched so many, and there was a time where we were like, okay, this Charlotte team, they're going to be something to be reckoned with in this Eastern Conference. Dean Smith's got things going in the right direction here. This team is believing. And then all of a sudden you go on this kind of a stretch and you need something good. You need something positive to kind of snap yourself out of it.
Yeah. And the press hasn't looked as sharp lately. And that's part of what they use to get those transitions and get that kind of advantage. So they do that, and it's looked good at times. And Chicago kind of tends to build more methodically. What makes this tactical clash interesting, and where do you think it could break open? I think we saw it kind of break open when Chicago won 4-1 at the bank, which is very unusual to lose in very embarrassing and bad way earlier in the year. But like where is it where that clash is going to happen, and what breaks it open?
Well, I do think with Charlotte and that press, because Chicago's defense isn't real rock solid either. I mean, they have some moments, Jack Elliott they acquired, which was a massive get for them, but they've had a lot of injuries. They've had a lot of rotation squad. They have their backup goalkeeper in right now with Chris Brady out with the national team. So for me, if Charlotte finds a way to continue in that high press, but again, that's another one of those things that has to be a unit. You have to be willing to do the work for each other as a unit. You can't have one decide to go and the rest doesn't. It has to be a unified front of how you're going to press, when you're going to press, where the line of confrontation is, what that's going to look like. Are you trying to isolate a team on one side so they get an overload, but they think they're overloaded, but they're not really because you've pushed them in that direction? And then maybe you can bait them into a big switch where you then can step and intercept that diagonal ball. All these little things. It's like these moments we talk about and why we love this game of soccer is because you have to read the game as it's going on. These aren't set plays. These aren't plays being called from the sideline. This is all stuff that you've got to come up with and put into place in the game yourself. You've worked on it in training. So for me, if Charlotte can do that, can get this press together and force the Chicago team, who's not been great building out of the back, who hasn't been great defensively when they lose the ball, to capitalize, and then you win the ball and you're closer to their goal. I mean, there's not much better as an attacking player or a team when you can win the ball closer to the opponent's goal and have 1-2 passes and then finish. And for a Charlotte team that has struggled to score and has struggled to find positive moments, that might be the best chance right there, is taking that, high press, forcing the turnover, frustrating this back line for Chicago Fire and capitalizing on an early moment. I think the first goal is going to be really important for either side because of the mentality and sort of the mental frame of mind that these two teams are in right now.
Yeah, you talk about a first goal. It kind of makes me think like what emotional cues would you be looking for early in the match to know that either team has really bounced back to be the team that they need to moving forward?
Well, first of all, I think both these coaches and the players have said openly, like there's probably nothing better in this moment than to play a game 2 or 3 days later, because you're both coming off of these losses where you feel disappointed in your performance. It's not even just about the result. It's about the performance itself. What did we do? What did we not do? What mistakes did we make? What did we not? I mean, these are like fundamental things from both sides where, you can talk to the coaches and they might just be like, don't even watch that tape. I mean, I'm sure they will as a team, but don't bother going back and watching that one because you're not going to get much from it. Forget this. But mentally and emotionally, they're ready to get back on the pitch, especially after this awkward, weird layoff, that we had with the 2 breaks, with the June 6th break and the June 21st break, that it just felt like a lot of time. And so I think for Charlotte in particular, I'm curious to see any lineup changes, because there was so much talk about guys not, doing their job, guys not just doing the little things right. Everybody kind of needs to get on board. Accountability is a big word that we all use in sports. And I'll be curious if there's any lineup changes and what kind of rotation that Dean Smith would maybe go with, or what he has at his disposal with some of the absences to maybe ignite a little bit of energy and fire in this Charlotte side, to kind of stir the pot a little bit when you have some depth, to see if someone else is willing to step in and sort of prove themselves and do the things right. So it could be the emotional cues for me, it could be before the whistle even blows. It could be, how do you warm up? Who's in the starting 11? What kind of, is somebody going to poke the bear a little bit and light a fire under some of these Charlotte players to see what they can do on the road?
Right. I mean, their last win, the win at home, I guess, against Columbus, that was it was like the energy needed to be at this certain level, and they brought it that night, but we really haven't seen it since. Now, what about from Greg Berhalter and Chicago? What kind of thing are you going to notice in them that they're like, ooh, okay, we're back on?
Well, something that Greg Berhalter said in the post game, in particular, because of the Philadelphia game and the way Philly plays, and Greg Berhalter was super complimentary of Philadelphia. We all know they're sitting at the top of the Eastern Conference, top of the Supporter Shield, which I didn't see coming because with a coaching change, new system, new style. I mean, Jim Curtin had been there forever. It's the only name we ever associated, with Philadelphia. Bradley Carnell comes in. Yes, and they're both actually kind of mild-mannered in the way they speak, meaning Jim Curtin and Bradley Carnell. Neither of them is very, gets, at least not with us when we talk to him, gets super fired up. But I wasn't sure how it was. Just takes time to implement a new style and a new system and a new voice. Instead, Philadelphia is just killing it. And that was what Greg Berhalter said. He was most disappointed that they didn't match that energy and the intensity, and they knew what they were getting. I think there was like 45 fouls between the two teams, and Philadelphia had 5 yellow cards. And so what I'm expecting to see from Chicago Fire, and the reason I bring that game up, is maybe some hard challenges early in this game. Not dirty challenges, not, taking some guy's legs out, nothing like that. You're not going in trying to get cards, but just where you are sending a message to the opponent physically that you are there and you're not messing around. And the second that guy receives the ball, he's going to feel you on his back. You're going to be on his ankles, and there's not going to be any messing around. And I'm guessing it'll start mostly in the midfield, because we talked about the midfield battle. I think that's where so much of the game gets dictated on both sides of the ball, that when somebody goes to check to the ball in the middle of the pitch and they're trying to look the other way, go out the other side, whatever, they're not going to have time to turn. So for Chicago Fire, when I see what are they going to do to send the message, how are we going to know that they're ready to go in this Saturday game and bounce back from that loss? It's going to be about the physicality and sort of the physical challenges to make sure that they're laying down the law with this Charlotte team coming to town. And we know these guys are right next to each other in the standings.
Yeah. You
can't just get up to play the top team. You can't just get up for Columbus. You can't just get up for, at the time Chicago was playing Miami, when sometimes the big guns come to town. You have to win these games and come to play. And I think this is going to be a big one with where they sit in the standings and knowing kind of what's at stake to get this thing going in the right direction.
Yeah, I think it's going to start off chippy from the beginning. I think we're going to see a real physical, like who is going to match each other's for that, not only that energy, but the physicality you said, and just looking for those moments and just really trying to take advantage, because they both saw those things just lay out in front of them and just not happen.
Yep. And honestly, I asked Greg Berhalter this today. I said, sometimes is that more frustrating as a coach? Because this isn't a tactical thing that you guys didn't do right. This was just not coming with the right mentality. And that can be so frustrating as a coach, because when I just did Houston, Minnesota, Ben Olsen said that coming off their Montreal game. He said, it's the first game I've seen from my club since I've been here in Houston, that where my team didn't show up mentally, like ready to play. They didn't match the intensity. And that is frustrating as a coach, because that's something as a player. And as you just have to do that on your own. It's not really at this level up to a coach to find a way to motivate you. You have to come in and match the other team's intensity. And so I'm expecting, I keep using the word fire, which seems so cheesy when I'm doing a Chicago Fire game, but like the fireworks, the energy, the vibe, the intensity. I think it's going to be there for this game. And I think it'll be good, because both these teams are not going to want to go home without the points.
So have you noticed a difference in the kind of the home field of Chicago, from different years this year now with Berhalter and the way they're playing? Is it different from what we've seen in the past? Charlotte's had some good results going there. We know they desperately need a win, but are you feeling like this will draw a crowd, this will bring them out, or they're kind of like, we're done?
I don't think they're done, and especially, to be honest, with the city of Chicago in general. And I know we've said this a lot with soccer in this country in general, right? You're like, holy cow, how are people not showing up if you're in a certain market? Because that's a soccer market. It's got the youth teams, it's a soccer market. Everybody should be going to these games. Sometimes it's hard when you're in a city where there's so much to do. I used to cover baseball, and I'd be like, why is nobody at the Padres game? And it would be like, beautiful, well, they're all at the beach. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like there's just other things to do. And that's not a knock on the sport. It's not a knock on the team, but you have to get people to want to come and watch what you're doing. and it's not always just about winning. It's about making an entertaining product. It's making fans want to show up. And I think what Greg Berhalter has done is there's a very solid style of play. There's a very systematic, in a good way he's going about things. It's all very purposeful. I think he's given some young players some license to attack and to feel confident and participate in what they're doing on the first team. Then you get the announcement, honestly, of this new stadium that they're building and the investment that the owner is making. I mean, these are all good things for our whole sport across the country, right?
It's beautiful.
And it's beautiful. And, it's going to look like it looks, and Joe Mansueto will put in the investment. It's privately funded, but it's going to be in a great area. So I think this, and Greg Berhalter has said something to us. I've done more than one Chicago game this year. And I asked him about consistency, because that seems to be the buzzword for coaches this year, is finding consistency, not over just one or two games, but, a sustained consistency. Right. And he said for him, it's not even so much consistency. It's about progress, because they are still a new team under him. And I think fans are wanting to come and watch what they are doing. It's exciting. It's fun. There's a great environment. It's a clear identity of what direction he's taking this team in. So yes, they don't have a home record that I'm sure they wish they had at Soldier Field this season. And Greg Berhalter, if he had the answer, he'd wave a magic wand and fix it. But I think that the Chicago scene is going to continue to be on this, upward trajectory with Greg Berhalter in charge.
Is there a player on each team that we might think of like under the radar type player that we should keep an eye on? I know we don't know lineups, but who are you thinking like, wow, if this person's in, this is the difference or the impact they can make?
Well, when I think about, I'm just looking at, I had written down all my lineups. I've been working on my notes all day here. When I look at the game that you guys just had, I would still go with Toklamati. And I know that he scored the goal and I know he's flashy, but again, you talk about a player that is trying to make his mark when Aubin is gone. We talked about it with the Minnesota United game, Calvin Yeboah trying to make his mark with Tani Oluwaseyi gone with the Canadian. There's certain guys that know that this is their moment. This is their opportunity. Right. And he's not necessarily a surprise, Toklamati, but I do think that this is a moment for him to continue to start to drive his fight for that spot. When you're kind of amongst some of the stars and you've got Zaha up there and you're trying to find scoring, trying to find goals, and Abada and Biel and all these guys that can contribute from an attacking perspective. And Aubin is going to come back and probably have a whole ton of confidence. He was also just named an all-star for Charlotte. So that's a big moment for him. So he's going to come back on cloud nine. So I think for Toklamati, this is a moment again for him to continue to drive things home, continue to sort of raise his stock, build his confidence and the coach's confidence in him. And then I kind of on an off one for Chicago. He didn't start in the last game, but Sergio Orahel is a young player that actually, no, he did start in the last game. I was thinking of Glasgow. Orahel, he's number 35. He's a really young midfielder. And I remember where he made his mark in my mind was playing against Miami. And he had like no hesitation against Lionel Messi in the midfield. Confident on the ball, could turn, switch fields on a dime, always checking his shoulder, doing the good things right. He's still very young, but keep an eye on him because that's a name. And he came up through the system in Chicago, but under Berhalter, he's getting a really good opportunity to be more involved. And I just like his work rate is incredible. And then I think that allows the players around him, like a Gutierrez and things, to go forward and be more in the attack, and he'll stay home a little bit more and help out. So that would be my sort of under the radar one for Chicago. I've been really impressed with him, especially being a young player.
Awesome. Well, Kyndra, thank you so much for your time and your insights that you bring to the match. Thanks for joining us. We'll be listening and watching closely on Saturday night on Apple TV, MLS Season Pass, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. Kyndra, any last words?
No, just thanks for having me. I'm excited, and hopefully we get some goals and some energy in this game, and both teams are going to come out not wanting to, like a never say die attitude, and then it's a win-win for all of us.
Yes, definitely. Again, thanks for listening. listening to another episode of the Charlotte FC podcast, where we bring you the fascinating people who work for and around Charlotte FC and the world of football. The Charlotte FC podcast is edited and produced by me, Nick Finelli, and Eli Finelli. Please help us out and share this episode with others. 5 stars, and follow CLTFC Podcast on Instagram, X, and YouTube. Until next time, enjoy the day.